Hello everyone and happy Saturday. Welcome to my room. Today we're going to be talking about the FE function in INFJs and much more besides. So before I move on to my topic, just remember that I've written 2 books, latest being The Infinite Castle, my novel, featuring what is most likely to be an INFJ, and my now somewhat well-known book on the INFJ, The Ecstatic Soul, all available down below in the description box. So why do I want to talk about the FE function here in this video? I think one reason for this is that lately, I've been making videos where I just noticed a trend, or a pattern in my reasoning and my explanation is that the FE function kept coming back as a function that was mentioned quite a lot. And just give me a second, just have to make sure that my cat is not tempted to leave the room, because if she is, you can see her there next to my posters of Psychopaths and my Attack on Titan cushion, and Cookie, my cat. You can see I'm both a nerd and a cat lover, which are facts you already knew about. The FE function just kept coming back, and I just think that the need is so pressing, and it's been pressing for many years, possibly decades, ever since the mythology around FE. I mean, mythology in a negative sense, being a function to be suspicious towards, or a suspicion that doesn't contribute to the narrative, the best and favorite narrative about INFJs and other FE types. Just the need for that to be overcome is very strong still, especially when we think of the importance of the FE function in the INFJ life. This is something that I go into at length in the Ecstatic Soul, and some of my readers have really emphasized that they have garnered that as an insight from the book, and that's something that I would consider a massive win. But let me just go back to it a little bit, because it's something that is just so important, and that I feel not everybody still to this day appreciates it. So the first thing that I wanted to say, clarify is, when we're talking about, Jungian existentialism, which is the sort of, this book is a manifesto of Jungian existentialism. It says so on the cover page. It says it here specifically, Jungian existentialism. We're not talking about Jungian analysis as such. We're not talking about Jungian intellectualism as such. We're not talking about Jungian self-narratives for the purpose of feeling good about oneself as such. We're talking about existentialism with a Jungian stance on it, angle on it, a Jungian vocabulary. So if you like, an interplay and an interchange between Jungian psychology, depth psychology more specifically, and existentialist philosophy. So it's about using the tools of Jungian analysis for the purpose of existential liberation. Okay? So sure, as part of this liberation is the goal to understand yourself better, because without understanding yourself better, you cannot attain that existential liberation. But understanding yourself better is also a step, no matter how important a step, toward being free, being liberated, being able to attain your full potential, and experiencing a certain sense of existential fullness, existential contentment. Now we can also call this happiness, but I think happiness is something that, first of all, it's a vague concept, and we all know that happiness, the state of joy, of happiness, for the vast majority of us who are honest with ourselves, it's a fleeting emotion. It's not an emotion it's not an emotion of which we are conscious 100% of the time. It's something that happens to us and we realize, oh, I'm really happy right now. Existential fulfillment and contentment are things that are lasting, but we need to work towards those things. Jungian existentialism is an approach to Jungianism that really aims at that. Existential fullness, contentment, fulfillment. Okay? From within this picture, it's not enough to attain to an understanding of what the INFJ personality is, but about your possibilities, your phenomenology, how your consciousness works, what your everyday life looks like, and what are your challenges and to overcome them. Now, within that, understanding the FE function, not just in terms of the bare bones of the theory, that tells you FE is like a function that is oriented with external values and harmonizes between different groups of people, and by the way also has these dark sides when not utilized properly, which consists usually of manipulation and playing with people and being able to navigate the environment in a very smooth way. I mean, these are things that are not really capturing the FE function. It's capturing a certain kind of person navigating with their function in a particular way, which might not be well intentioned. The absence of good intentions in this or that case has nothing to do with the function itself. The function is just in some cases, an instrument towards attaining, less than ideal goals. And by the way, you can do that with any function. What is true is that the functions of judgments, because they are closer to the delivery of an action, the functions of judgment are going to be a little bit more exposed to the charge that, they could be utilized for evil purposes. In fact, the functions of perception are also involved, but they're a little bit further from the action, and therefore they're not as exposed when we are judging or assessing, to use the word judging in two different senses, but assessing the moral character of a particular function. Functions don't have moral character, but they are more or less closely associated to actions that illustrate a moral character because they are more or less close. And as a matter of fact, the functions that are closest to the delivery of an action are the functions of extroverted judgment. They are the closest. If you remember the links of the chain, I talked about that in the Ecstatic Soul. You have extroverted perception as gathering information, introverted perception as processing information, introverted judgment as deliberating about what action to deliver on the basis of what was called perceptively. Extroverted perception in delivering a roadmap in some sense, a course of a work plan or roadmap toward the action and then the action itself. So T and FE are closest to that kind of judgment and to the action and to the possibility of being associated with actions of doubtful character. FE no more than TE. FE is more exposed, more famous in the everyday consciousness for its moral dubiousness, which is again misattributed, but this is how it comes across to some people, and some people in the community are very convinced of it to this day. And sometimes even when they're not there, they can intellectually agree that they're wrong about it or that it's a bias. They still have it viscerally. So it really speaks to the strong influence of that mistaken assumption, that FE has a moral character, good or bad. T just is as much exposed to it in principle. In practice, it's a little bit well known or T is less associated with moral dubiousness, just because it so happens that FE provides the ideal narrative with its ability to navigate environments and to shape them to according to one's motivations. That leads to a lot of books, fiction of all sorts, movies, cases covered by the press. It's always focusing on the FE not wielded with the best intentions rather than T, even though, you know, the T cases are probably just as numerous, but they don't make for as good and compelling a story because they don't have this, as much of this subjective human element. Yeah. Come here, come here. Now, she is not going to be with us for a long time, but I just wanted you to see how beautiful Cookie is. Look at this girl. Look at this girl. She is what's called a calico cat, as you guys might know. She's not happy to be in my arms right now. It's not her favorite thing, but she's also very, very soft and very gentle. She'd never scratch me. But if you can look at his ears and notice that she is not delighted. Mwah. She's 2.5 years old now. We found her and her brother Bash in the garden of our house, hiding about in their little hut that they had made, or you know, that they were dwelling in for protection. And she's been with us for a long time now. In any case, I don't think Cookie is an FE user. If I were to be silly enough to type her, I would probably type her INFP. And if there's anyone among you who are interested in this, I might make a video about this to explain my reasoning, because it's actually more intricate than you might expect. But in any case, so FE, in order to embrace FE for an INFJ, you really have to, first of all, really go beyond these negative perceptions that really exist. And sometimes, like I said, even if someone agrees intellectually that these biases are mistaken, to actually get rid of them fully requires more than intellectual effort. It requires really an engagement of the will. So that's something that, you know, I would really encourage you to pursue. I'll just open for the cat. I'm just aware of the fact that she wants to leave now. I should not have let her in, because she came in just before I started making the video, and there we go. But it's hard to resist a cat that's as beautiful as that, you know. Now, in terms of the very concrete role that FE plays in the INFJ personality, I think this is probably something that I'll have to cover in tomorrow's video also, because time is already starting to add up and I've been a little chatty. But I just want to give you a preview of what I'll be covering tomorrow as well, you know, because this is following really straight from like the middle chapters or the central chapters of the Ecstatic Soul. FE for an INFJ is a very significant function. All the more significant because it tends to be slightly, ever so slightly, denigrated in favor of the other functions. Anna is obviously very much prized by the INFJ because it felt to be what makes them unique and what their DNA is. TI is praised because in a way the third function is often a function that's seen as a path of growth. Also, TI is associated with INTPs, it's associated with smart, you know, being very intelligent, being very rational. This is something that anybody tends to want to seek. Anybody who already has, you know, an identification with intelligence is likely to have in their definition of themselves, you know, and their, whether you call it part of the persona or not, it's something that, you know, and whether people admit it or not is something that, you know, people who identify as that, they like to see confirmation of it, so they're going to really pursue TI as well. And SE, they're being the inferior function and having so many success, you know, ever since childhood, we had so many successful people that we see as successful, you know, with women or men, depending on our gender and our preference, and many other qualities, being capable of being in the moment, having a kind of ability to not dwell on negative thoughts, being well dressed, having good taste in music. There are a lot of things to like about SE, and so INFJs tend to have this desire to also pursue it, although it is true that INFJs are highly intellectual and tend to be isolated and therefore probably alienated, will sometimes reject SE as much as they reject FE. But FE is the function, I think, that is the most likely not to be valued. And that's a big mistake. It's a big mistake because FE, as an auxiliary or extroverted function, is really our, when I say our, I mean our INFJs, if you like, it is our way into the social world, not only to navigate it well and to succeed with FE as an instrument, because again, that's true, it can be true, but it's an instrumental version of the FE narrative, which can so easily be turned into something negative, like we discussed in the first part of the video. But even from your own perspective, from your own existential viewpoint, without FE, you don't really have access to the social world. So you don't have the opportunity to enrich the range of experiences for your extrovert perception for SE, which in turn is what feeds your NI. Now, what feeds your NI is going to be further clarified, further purified by your TI, okay? So in order for TI to have something to work with, NI needs to have something to work with. In order for NI to have something to work with, SE needs to have something to work with. But in order for SE to have something to work with, something rich to work with, not just the repetition of the same that is going to happen if you're always isolated. You might convince yourself that you're having very smart thoughts, but really you're becoming a bit barren. So in order for SE to have something to work with, FE needs to have something to work with. But in the first place, FE needs to be valued, properly understood, the mythologies to be dispelled, and for it to be used. Because that really is the destiny of the INFJ, and I mean this seriously. And FE is the key. FE is the key to existential fulfillment, which is a topic that I will develop further into tomorrow's video. In the meantime, let me know what you think, guys, and I will see you indeed tomorrow. Take care. Don't forget that you can follow me on Patreon, by the way. Bye-bye.